The image is hauntingly specific. It is May 1st, 1945. Berlin is burning above, but deep underground, in the concrete intestine of the Führerbunker, a 4-year-old girl stands in a white nightgown. Her hair is tied with ribbons. She is singing a nursery rhyme to a telephone operator, oblivious to the fact that the walls around her are shaking from Soviet artillery. This is not a scene from a nightmare. It is the final historical footnote of the Third Reich. Within hours, those ribbons would be the only colourful things left in a room filled with the smell of bitter almonds. History has often been kind to Magda Goebbels, painting her final act as a tragic, perhaps even merciful, necessity born of madness. We are told a story of a mother who gently put her children to sleep to save them from the brutality of the incoming Red Army. It is a comforting lie. The truth, buried in autopsy reports and court transcripts for decades, is far colder. It was not a mercy killing. It was a calculated execution, and it was not peaceful. When Soviet pathologists entered the bunker 2 days later, they found the 6 children in their bunk beds. 5 of them appeared as if they were sleeping, but the eldest, 12-year-old Helga, told a different story. Her face was bruised, her jaw was swollen. The autopsy photographs revealed defensive marks. This details changes everything. It signifies that the morphine administered to sedate them had not worked quickly enough on her, or perhaps her 12-year-old metabolism fought it off. Helga woke up. She saw the doctors. She likely saw her mother holding the capsule. And in those final, terrified moments of the Nazi regime, a 12-year-old girl fought her own mother for her life. She was held down. The cyanide was forced between her teeth. This was the reality of the bunker. A struggle in the dark. A betrayal by the one person designed to protect you. But to understand the full weight of this tragedy, we must look away from the dead and turn our eyes to the living. Because while the Goebbels bloodline ended in that concrete room, Magda's bloodline did not. It bifurcated. One branch went into the grave. The other ascended to the very peak of global capitalism. Magda had a son from her first marriage, Harold Quandt. At the moment his half-siblings were being suffocated, Harold was a 23-year-old prisoner of war in Libya, captured by Allied forces. He was safe, far away from the toxic loyalty of his mother. Yet, Magda reached out to him from the abyss. She wrote him a farewell letter, a document that serves as a terrifying window into the fanatic's mind. She did not apologize. She justified. She wrote that a world without National Socialism was not a world worth living in, and therefore she could not allow her children to endure it. She framed their murder as an act of protective love. She was saving them from a future she deemed unworthy. Harold read these words in 1947. Upon his release, he returned to a Germany that was unrecognizable, a landscape of rubble and shame. But Harold had something most Germans did not: a legacy of immense industrial power. His father, Günther Quandt, was a titan of industry. The Quandt family fortune had been built on textiles, batteries, and armaments, fueled during the war by forced labor. The infrastructure was damaged, but the capital remained. Here lies the great paradox of the post-war era. While the bodies of Helga, Helmut, and the little ones were being shuffled between secret Soviet graves, Harold Quandt was building the economic miracle. Alongside his half-brother, Herbert, they did not look back. They looked forward. They acquired Varta. They rescued a failing Bavarian car manufacturer known as BMW. They restructured, invested, and turned it into a symbol of German precision and luxury. The psychological compartmentalization required for this is staggering. Harold had grown up with those 6 children. He had played with them. Yet, in the decades that followed, a silence descended. The Quandt family, like much of West Germany, rebuilt their lives by sealing off the past. They constructed a new normality on top of the ruins. Every time a BMW engine roared to life in the 1960s, it was a testament to this successful repression. The success of the survivor was absolute, while the victims dissolved into total obscurity. But what of justice? Surely, the men who physically administered the poison faced a reckoning. This assumption presumes that the post-war legal system was interested in justice. It was not. It was interested in order. The man who injected the children with morphine was an SS dentist named Helmut Kunz. His story adds another layer of grim irony to the narrative. Just months before the bunker, Kunz had lost his own 2 young daughters in an American bombing raid. He was a grieving father. Yet, when ordered to help kill 6 other children, he complied. He later claimed he refused to crush the cyanide, leaving that task to Magda and Hitler's doctor, Ludwig Stumpfegger. But he admitted to the morphine. He admitted to preparing them for death. Kunz stood trial in 1959. By then, West Germany was eager to move on. The judges presiding over his case were men of his own generation, men who, records show, had their own Nazi Party membership numbers in the past. They looked at Kunz and perhaps saw a reflection of themselves, men who had just followed orders in impossible times. They applied an amnesty law from 1954. They ruled that Kunz was a minor accessory, coerced by the circumstances. The man who sedated 6 children so they could be murdered walked out of the courtroom, a free man. He lived out his days in comfort, dying peacefully in bed, a luxury he helped deny to the children in the bunker. While Kunz lived, and while the quant fortune multiplied into the billions, the children themselves underwent a final, grotesque journey. For decades, their remains lay in a secret grave at a counterintelligence facility in Magdeburg, East Germany. They were political pawns, bones held by the Soviets as potential evidence or leverage. But by 1970, the Soviet leadership decided that even the bones were a liability. Yuri Andropov, the head of the KGB, signed the order. It was a bureaucratic directive to erase history. On a night in April 1970, KGB agents exhumed the boxes. They set up a pyre. They burned the remains of the Goebbels family until they were nothing but ash. They then crushed the charred remnants into a fine powder and drove to a bridge over the Biederitz River. There was no ceremony. There was no prayer. Just the sound of ash hitting the water, drifting toward the North Sea. The physical evidence of Magda's choice was finally gone. This brings us to the uncomfortable reality of today. We prefer stories with closure, where the villains are punished and the innocent are remembered. But the story of the Goebbels family offers no such comfort. It offers only a mirror to the complexities of the human condition. On one side, we have the total erasure of the victims. There is no grave for Helga or her siblings. A proposal to install a memorial plaque was rejected, caught in the philosophical trap of whether one can memorialize the children of monsters without honoring the monsters themselves. So, they remain invisible, unmourned, their names known only to historians. On the other side, we have the triumph of the survivor. The descendants of Harold Quandt are today among the wealthiest people on the planet. The BMW brand is a global icon of status and performance. The capital that was preserved while the children were perishing has grown into an empire. The car in your driveway, the battery in your device, these are the tangible legacies of the family that walked out of the wreckage. Magda Goebbels wrote that a world without National Socialism was not worth living in. She was wrong. Her son proved her wrong. He proved that life goes on, that money can be made, and that empires can be built on the ashes of ideology. But the price of that survival was silence. A silence that covered the bruises on a 12-year-old girl's face. A silence that allowed a dentist to walk free. A silence that separates the gleaming machinery of modern Germany from the dark, cold waters of the Biederitz River, where the children finally disappeared. We are left not with a moral, but with a haunting observation. The ideology died in the bunker. The family name died in the river. But the fortune survived. In the end, perhaps that is the coldest truth of all. Innocence is perishable, but capital is immortal.